Welcome back to the FM Technical Area, the Football Manager podcast, brought to you by me, your host, Gaffer Graemo, once again. I did promise a second episode last week, but that was on the condition that things were going smoothly and we were building up to that delayed late November release of FM25. But as we all know and as we've seen the news since, we are going to be delayed even further again until March of next year before we do get a game called FM25. And whether that or not will meet the expectations that we have come to expect from Football Manager in the past, or whether or not we're going to be playing a game that is, blows our mind. Time will only tell. And look, it's no shock, no surprise, no wonder to see that there's many disappointed, upset, to the point that there's even angry and annoyed people out there in the community, angry people on the internet who are unhappy with this news. And look, so be it. People are well and truly entitled to be angry. People are well and truly entitled to be upset. But at the end of the day, that's not going to change anything. Well, I'm sure, share our disappointment and share our anger and frustration at what we've come to expect in a privileged way of a brand new game waiting for us at the end of October or November of every year. We're now in a position where, just like 2000 and FM 2005, we saw the split from AADOS and Championship Manager 0304 became the last version of that version of the game, and we got Football Manager 2005. We're now entering that new era now where, once again, we have a big change, and a big change that has come about with a delay. Now, it's a natural point in the life cycle for many of us, even in our yearly cycles, if you want to even put it that way. And when we set out 12 months ago to plan and hope and expect Football Manager 2024, we got Football Manager 2024 in November. And all of our planning, everything like that, goes into a 1 year cycle. But since that 1 year cycle is coming to an end, for many that cycle ended maybe before the summer, before the end of the last European calendar season. For some, it might have ended there just at the end of the summer into the early stages of the 24-25 season. And like that, for some, maybe like that, it's coming close to an end now, and Football Manager 24 would naturally be coming to an end. But nonetheless, the game has been put on life support. The game has been told to, pull an all-nighter really here and, go beyond what it was expected to do. We're asking questions of this game. It's putting demands on this game that we, suppose, didn't expect that we'd need to do. But look, it's an obstacle, it's a challenge now that we all have to face of how we go and how we meet this next 5 months. How we go ahead looking forward to FM25. And maybe we just see FM25 as a transitionary game to FM26. The 5-month life period now that Football Manager 24 has been given isn't going to be far off the 8-month expected lifespan of Football Manager 2025. Going by previous release dates and assuming that SI want to get back to releasing that pre-Christmas game. So we're now all in a stage where we're trying to figure out what to do with Football Manager 2024. And we're also going to be figuring out what to do with FM25. I'm in a very weird place with FM25. I know I teased stuff on Twitter there about having my new save reveal coming out on Halloween. But the thing with that was obviously assuming that, again, Football Manager 25 would be out in November. And the funny thing was, I wasn't overly committed to the save that I had there. Obviously, the plan for FM24 and FM25 was Basel is going to be the main save. And everything else is going to be a frivolous piece of enjoyment, something that we do on the side. Something that, fills in the international break like now where you don't play a match for... Like, I'm actually not playing a game in Football Manager for 2 weeks with Basel because... Now, in terms of the structure of this, how are we gonna, try and pad out a full episode talking about this? I spent a good bit of time thinking, I was like anybody about the new Football Manager 25, about our saves. And, I kind of went through the process that I have, and I suppose I've jotted it down. And that's the plan here. Like, we're going to go through the plan, the structure, kind of the steps I like to consider when I'm going to be approaching a new save. So the first thing we're going to do then, obviously, is determine the goals. What are going to be the goals? What are the targets for the save that we want to have? Whether they're short, long term, whatever it is, what are going to be our targets? Now, obviously, it's going to be shorter term with Football Manager 24 from Football Manager 25, we expect. So how could we work on a short term goal for a save here? The second part, the second section, the second segment, we're going to kind of talk about alternate realities. One of the things we can do about Football Managers, it's a fantasy world at the end of the day, and it provides us a great sense of escape. And why not lean into the fantasy there in new ways? Why not try and embrace change and embrace some of the, like nuances, some of the fancy elements that can come with playing a fantasy game, really, at the end of the day, albeit football, but based with real clubs in the real world. The final section then we're going to talk about is the great experiment. That's something I like to try and incorporate into every save I've done so far. Something I've done in previous years, and I've shared it with you. Whether it was sticking with the back three in Football Manager, is it 21? And then, of course, Football Manager 22, fell flat on its face. And then Football Manager 23, 24, what I've tried to do in the game here, what I've tried to achieve with Basel, the real time, sticking 4-2-3-1, short corners, all of these things. So, just kind of focusing on some, particular, element here that we're going to try and get through. So we're going to start off with that first section. That's determining our goals. And that's a place that I always feel is a great place. What do I want to achieve in Football Manager this year? Now, this part is crucial. And the reason it's crucial is because the type of save you'll enjoy the most depends on what you're hoping to achieve. Are you looking for a short-term challenge, a narrative-driven story, or a save where you can experiment with new tactics? We're going to break down a few popular goals for like these 4 to 5 month real life time saves. And then like that, hopefully we can come up with some ideas to match them. Of course, look, these are just some ideas. There's plenty of clubs that fit these, but I've kind of stuck just with a Eurocentric approach really here to what I'm going to share. So obviously the first goal is instant success. If you're looking for like that quick taste of silverware, if you want to just win trophies, you want a save where you can jump straight into a competitive league and challenge for trophies and challenge for clubs that are ready and ripe for these, golden eras, ones where like that your neck will get heavy for all the medals being put around you and your ears will be ringing from all the accolades and all the songs that are being sung about you. Clubs like Milan, Borussia Dortmund, Tottenham Hotspur even. These are kind of, great choices for these type of saves. If, your allegiances don't lie with some of the other clubs in these areas, But these clubs have great infrastructure. They have a passionate fan base. They have fantastic player quality. They have good financial resources. They're ready to challenge immediately, but none of them are really kind of the finished product. So like that, you're going to have to, implement your own style, make some changes, implement your own philosophy, all of these things in order to help these clubs reach the next level. Now, one of the big considerations here is looking at the competitiveness of the league. Some leagues are being dominated by larger clubs, PSG, Manchester City. Last season was fantastic where you see Bayer Leverkusen win in a very Football Manager-esque story. A manager comes in, they're in the relegation zone and within 18 months is lifting the league title. So the thing is, consider the board expectations. Is it possible to, break the dominance of these larger teams quickly? And how much pressure is there to deliver immediate results? Because of course, the thing is, you don't want to make yourself miserable. You don't want to be putting yourself under pressure when you play the game. Or maybe you do. Maybe you thrive under pressure. I don't know. But look, one of the things that really is to consider is like, can I realistically dominate in a shorter time frame with these teams? Can I, cope with board pressures of needing to reach latter stages of competitions and, be in the top 2-3 places with 5-10 games to go, whatever it is? So how are you going to be ready to cope with the pressures there to go and achieve and succeed immediately? Because of course, it's one thing, it's very easy to go into these clubs and win, or to, build up a legacy. But of course, if things don't go right in that first 6-12 months, perhaps you're out in your ear and, all of a sudden you're left scratching your head again. So just consider like that. What would be your approach be? Like taking a bit of time just to plot that instant success route. Because maybe you want to go for that, building a legacy goal. Maybe that your target is you kind of want something that's a little bit longer term than an instant win, but not one that's going to take, that usual 10, 15 years of, slow, steady building to rise to the top. You look at clubs like Lille in France, Real Sociedad in Spain, clubs that have a solid foundation but need just like a little bit of pinch of help to become real title challengers, real challengers in all competitions. And like that, do get involved in European competitions as well. So there's not just domestic silverware to be won, there's potential for European silverware as well. So like that, one of the things there is, it's like that. It might take the longer stage of the 4 to 5 months you have to FM24, or like that, it might take a good chunk of FM25 to get to the point where you are, a true success story. But of course, these teams are ripe. They're just on the cusp of, being successful. And, they're fantastic football manager projects to take on just in that little short time frame as well. Now, obviously, some considerations need to be made, player availability. How good is the youth setup here? How good are the, can I develop a squad quickly here? What is the build-up of this squad in terms of strength and depth? How about, financial resources? Like, is there a financial issue here, or how flexible are the finances? Like, could I actually make a realistic go of this here, or is it a situation where I'm going to have to sell for 2, 3, 4 years, and then eventually I'll have the money to buy and sign the players that I need just to take me over the top? So like, maybe you want to get creative with scouting. Maybe you want to take on a challenge, a target with a little bit of a financial pinch. Whatever it is, building a legacy. These medium-term saves, these kind of cusp clubs, even like you think Fiorentina potentially in Italy as well, they're just on the edge of it. So why not try and, look for that, 3 to 5 year save if you're able to, get that done in the time frame before FM25 becomes real. Now, maybe another goal, another target for you would be to develop young players. Maybe, you're all about just winning with the youngest average age in the league, or the youngest average age in a European competition or a continental competition, whatever it is. Maybe you want to, give a couple of seasons for these players to grow, bed in, and then, midway through this process, you've suddenly got a very young and exciting team that can go and win something within, 3 seasons or 5 seasons, whatever it is. Because there's many clubs out there that grow and thrive off, well established, well refined, very productive youth setups. So maybe you're taking on a club known for its academy, a club like Ajax or Benfica, or maybe you want to, drop outside the top, tier of football, and, maybe if your allegiances allow Leeds United perhaps, in the championship. These type of saves can be incredibly rewarding as you watch players grow and develop into first team stars. But of course, one of the key considerations is, do I have the time to commit to a save like this? How much patience do you really have, with these young players? How much leeway is going to be allowed for you from the board and even from yourself as well? Are you ready for these expectations that demand promotion or European qualification while you try and be youth-centric? Some, again, we don't want to make it a very unenjoyable last few months of Football Manager, but like all of these saves, there obviously always is going to be a caveat, and you just have to, make the choice, make the decision of, is that caveat enough? Is that challenge just enough for me to go into the next phase of Football Manager 24? And maybe, it's something you enjoyed doing in these couple of months. One of these kind of, you found a goal that you've really enjoyed, you worked it over a short period of time, and then Football Manager 25 with a shorter than average expected lifespan, we could go somewhere just a little bit longer, somewhere maybe a little bit lower down, somewhere a bit deeper, and then all of a sudden come FM26, you've got this philosophy really down, and suddenly it's become your true identity when you're making up your manager on that creation screen at the very beginning of a new save. Now, of course, that's just one element, and there's many other ways that we can look at Football Manager 24 and even FM25. But though the next section on FM25, we still have to find out a lot of details because it may involve the use of the in-game editor. Now, the alternative reality. A title Football Manager SI themselves have used to describe their own game. But of course, even the alternate reality that we occupy ourselves with for hours, weeks, months of our lives during the 365 days of the year can even have an alternate reality in itself. So we're going to maybe look at saves that break away from the traditional football experience. Sometimes stepping away from the real world of football, real world clubs, leagues, players, all of these things can offer a refreshing take on how we play Football Manager, and maybe could reignite the passion for the game that you might need, especially as you have wound up your time and your enjoyment with Football Manager 2024. Now, of course, one of the first options is going online and downloading some custom databases and fantasy leagues. And we're all very familiar with those and the websites that they're available from. Downloadable databases can completely transform how we play Football Manager and to completely transform our saves. Maybe you want to manage in a league that doesn't exist in real life. Maybe you want to give that European Super League a go. Maybe you want to face off in that situation where you are playing against Europe's best, Europe's elite every week in and week out. Maybe you want to try a hand at managing a custom created club, one that starts in a lower tier and works their way up. Maybe your Sunday League team is ready to win the Champions League. Now, of course, these saves can keep things fresh. Of course, these saves can offer you challenges that you don't often and ordinarily get in real life. They're great if you've played a lot of traditional saves, and of course, if you want something just a little bit different from Football Manager, they're absolutely ideal. However, these saves can often be an awful lot more predictable, and that's something that does need to be kept in mind. When you're balancing competition levels, you have to make sure that you're okay things with being a little bit less grounded than they are in real life. It can make things an awful lot, more challenging, a little bit more difficult. I suppose my own experience with this one has been using the Creative Club on FM2 years, where like that Sunday League team, I made them obviously in an Irish sense, start in Division 1, and you try and work your way up and win the Irish Premier Division, and the world's your oyster from that point there, really. Maybe the alternate there was, the custom database downloaded when, Forward Madison were the big thing, and, really making a big wave, making a big, push to grow a fan base after they were founded. And not only was there, the option to play as them competitively in Football Manager, but there's also the option to play with them in a league structure in the United States that offered promotion and relegation. And I know there's promotion and relegation databases there for the US, and that's really eye-opening. That's really, wonderful and enjoyable there if you want to embrace it. The American teams without the, just really intense and difficult to navigate, registration rules, transfer rules, all of these things to us who are non-familiar with, the nuances of not just the MLS, but all American sports and how these things work. So perhaps you do want to steer clear of the MLS, but maybe like that, you want to, take on one of these smaller teams and begin in a promotion relegation situation in the US. It's great fun and it's very enjoyable. But of course, the one thing you do have to be aware of is these, saves, these clubs can involve databases that just have a couple of difficulties and can be quite challenging. Now, if you do have the FM editor, perhaps you do want to create your own club in the full game of Football Manager. And that's something I did many years ago, where the San Jose Earthquakes suddenly were bought over by a tech magnate from Silicon Valley and decided to move the team, buying the now abandoned, Candlestick Park, the old home of the San Francisco 49ers, and turned it into the home of, here's a flashback, the San Francisco Rush, the custom jersey and everything I had made. It was back in FM18. Yeah, so it was FM18. The Adidas tags there prove it. But I had a really great and enjoyable save with this custom team. The goal of this was to try and bring American football elements into soccer. I had to build a team around the Regista. I think it was Yaya Toure was the Regista back then. And the idea was like that, was to try and win the Club World Cup. Now, I never got to the stage of winning the Club World Cup with San Francisco, the San Francisco Rush. But that was a really enjoyable save, something I really did enjoy. And perhaps maybe you mightn't dork out like me, go all nerdy and get the jersey made, or maybe you will. I have thought of potentially bringing back the San Francisco Rush in a future Football Manager edition, so maybe, who knows. But of course, the use of the in-game editor in FM25 and beyond, we don't know just how exactly that's going to work. But I'm not just speaking for myself, but for many others, I hope it's an awful lot easier than it was way back when. Now, the thing is, non-realistic clubs are great, creating this club. But how about non-realistic players? One of the things we do on this podcast is I've often done the tactical recreations over the past number of weeks, and it's been done with Inter Milan, where I've made myself the head coach of Inter. Now, using a database with famous players from the past is one way, and those guys who make those databases are absolutely phenomenal. The attention to detail, is, I think it was Mad Scientist FM bringing back the old versions of Champman and Football Manager. Absolutely fantastic, really enjoyable for me. They're just not my cup of tea. So what I've actually done, and suppose in this, here is, not facing legends like Maradona and Pele from the past, but creating my own alternative football universe. It's, obviously, you don't want to be a purist. You don't want to be managing real world stars, but it can offer you a lot of fun if you're willing to, let loose a little bit, roll up the sleeves, and just, really embrace something that's fun and different. So as you see here now, as I go into the Inter save, you'll see my squad here as a lot of greyed out players. The only 3 players at the club are Simone Finotto, who's a 17-year-old. We have Marco De Franchesi, a 16-year-old, and Greg Williams, a 16-year-old as well, US international. If you go into scouting, one of the things that's also happened if you look into players in range is none of the players in-game are real. And the oldest players available, as you can see on the player search screen, now we'll go in here, we'll see age between 15 and 45. Transfer status is any, there's no grade settings, no loan status, anything. Contract status is unattached. Now look, I can go into any here. But you will see now, look, we do have some of these amateur players available. But you go into any club across Europe, any club across the world. This is using the pre-settings that are in the creation center of Football Manager. I have gotten rid of, the players that we all have come to know and love. So what we suddenly have is an alternate reality. Clubs where, teams, you go through Serie A here now, everyone's only operating with youth and amateur players. So if you want to get players in, now is your chance. This is your opportunity. And it's something I really want to do now in the next episode or 2 is to work on scouting and to go into the recruitment focuses. Because obviously I have to build up recruitment focuses here because I have absolutely no players as you can see, at my disposal in my squad. So I'm going to have to go and build out a squad that is, no players here in the under-20s, no players in the under-18s. I'm starting brand spanking new. I'm going to not initially sign first team players. I need to go out and I need to get everybody in. Names are changed, all these things. So it's a blank save, completely new. And like that, it has my excitement built up that unfortunately I'm only playing it on podcast with you. So, I can't wait for the next episode or two when we do get into the recruitment focus, because I want to start putting together this squad. Of course, it says Lautaro Martinez is captain at the top and vice captain is Nicolo Barella. But of course, look, neither of these are applicable. These players do not exist anymore. These players can and unfortunately will be replaced. So perhaps for you, that is where your adventure lies with the rest of FM24. Going in, to starting a new save, and like that, having no real players. No one's at any clubs. It's a great bit of fun. It's blank. It's new. But again, the opportunities are endless, because like that, in 3 to 5 seasons, who knows? Maybe you'll see most unlikely of clubs relegated, and first time league winners or league winners for the first time in a century, whatever it is. But it's a great big scramble at the start, and a challenge that's going to keep rolling and developing, especially the longer you get into the save. Now, of course, this is only if Football Manager's been feeling mundane. If Football Manager's, getting a bit routine for you. You just want to break the monotony here. You just want to try something new. A new club, a new database, blast from the past, or like that. A reality that's truly, truly alternate. Whatever it is for you. The beauty of FM is you can mold it to whatever you want it to be. And sometimes we just gotta get a little bit weird with it. And finally, the last segment here we're going to talk about is the great experiment. If you're someone who loves testing new ideas, if you're someone who likes pushing the limits of the game's mechanics, this is the section for you. Here we'll explore save ideas that let you experiment with new approaches for Football Manager 2024, from tactical innovations to unique squad building challenges. Of course, the first one's quite popular, quite fun, and if you haven't done it, it can be a little bit frustrating at times, but it is the Director of Football Challenge. A classic among the community. What happens here is all you take care of is training, match tactics, and, that's really it. Now, if you're at a lower club or you want to take control of youth player development, of course, feel free to get involved there. But when you take on the Director of Football Challenge, really and truly, you are just the head coach here. The Director of Football is in charge of all transfers and contract negotiations. And it's a true test of your adaptability. Easy word to say at different hours of the day. But your adaptability. Can you make it work with the squad you're given? And of course, if you've got a technical director, and perhaps that's your staff being replaced as well. Technical director taking care of staff. Technical director taking care of other elements there, whatever you define those roles as. So perhaps you're handing over everything here to the Director of Football and the Technical Director. And all you got to do is work the group of players you got. Now, the thing is, if you were going to try take this on, it's something we're going to talk about, as I said already, alluded to earlier in this episode, is setting up detailed recruitment focuses and, having a good scouting network as well. Because this will ensure your Director of Football has the best information available and make sure that your tactical approach can adapt to the players that you receive. So when you're going into the recruitment focuses section there, make sure that you're going to put in some of the, ideal elements, ideal attributes, ideal traits that you want from your, you want your Director of Football to bring in for you. You want to have that say and that little bit of influence there, just even though, you might say in the end that, it's, bending the rules or, getting into that little grey area there. Now, another one is something that I've tried this year. This is one of my experiments from this year. It's been tactical experimentation where you've got one formation but many styles. So choosing a single formation, 4-3-3, 3-5-2, or in my case, 4-2-3-1, you got to challenge yourself to adapt to different styles of play. So you want to use those 3 tactical slots in game, but those 3 tactical slots all have to have a base 4-2-3-1 formation in my case, but the styles are different. I have a high energy and aggressive one in slot 2. I have a counter-attacking, deeper lying lower block in slot 3. And then I have my standard, balanced, if you want to use that approach, or positive approach really is what it is, in slot 1 as my primary go-to. What this does is, when you've got, these variations with the same formation but different styles of play, it gives you a much better understanding of how roles interact and how to kind of get the most out of your players. Because you've really kind of got to understand that if I want this to happen, these are the players I have, how can I adapt and suit? And it's only as you make, these adaptations as game go on, like with the aggression side of things, I don't have someone say who can play as a segundo volante, really, but I've got a ball-winning midfielder who can put on support and be aggressive, and a regista instead of a deep line playmaker. I can kind of make roles become a little bit more aggressive, because obviously my basic, formation, the two centre midfielders that are deep are a defensive midfielder and a regista, which, because the regista has evolved because of the success I had from the regista with the aggressive style of play. But when I go to the deeper counter low blocking one, it's actually deep line playmaker there, because I want to keep the lines, I want to keep the banks, I want to keep a bit more of a structure. So, it's something a little bit of fun, and I suppose it can work for you when you begin to understand how roles interact, and maybe, each of the styles slowly evolves and takes on elements of, well, I like how my team defend when we're in this low block, so I'm going to try bring this to my, default tactic. But then when we go aggressive, I don't like how this happens, so I need to make this change. That's the fun of it. You just have to be observant as you're watching those games. After 3, 4, 5 games, once you see the tactical familiarity grow on the tactic screen. Now, set up multiple templates, of course. Use the same. One of the things you could do there is to use the the presets at the side. Can kind of help you there, and just select 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, 3-5-2, whatever it is you're going to go for there, really. And use these built-in presets. Use an in-game analysis tools to then adjust them over time, so that they begin as something that's a little bit more generic, and like that within 3 to 5 seasons have slowly become yours. Of course, pay attention to team instructions as well, because if you're playing, obviously, as we always say, attacking, and you have players with an attacking role, or you're playing with a direct style of passing, they tend to be a little bit more direct. Things tend to change because, of course, as Bustanet Daljeed often says on his YouTube, when you look at the mentality is one way of putting it, but in actual fact, it's the level of risk and the level of risk that you're taking. So how risky is it going to be? If you're going direct but positive, it's not going to be all out risky passes like it would be when you go very attacking. So just keep that in mind as well when you are trying to set these up. The final little experiment I might suggest for you to try in Football Manager 2024, before we say goodbye to it, is a squad building one that just focused on one attribute. It's not that long ago, FM Grasshopper had that fantastic Fibra series with Estudiantes de La Plata. And, if you haven't read it, go back and check it out. The idea was Grasshopper's approach was to, take the Fibra style that once was associated with Estudiantes and then recreate it in the modern sense within a Football Manager. So translating the style from real life to Football Manager, based on research, based on, books like Angels with Dirty Faces and so on. So what happens if you want to try and build a team, just like Grass did, and just like many coaches have before? Build a team with players who all excel in one specific attribute. And look, it sounds like a YouTuber video here, but look, I want to have the quickest team in the league, so you're going to focus on pace. Or maybe you want the most creative team, so you're going to look at vision or flair. This experiment will force you to get creative with how you scout. This experiment will force you to get creative with your recruitment policies. It will force you to get, creative with your youth development policies. And build your tactics kind of to match the strengths, traits, profiles, and of course the weaknesses of the squad based on the attributes that you have here. Now, of course, scouting filters, recruitment focuses, all of these things can be very, very useful when you're trying to do this. You're trying to find the players who match these desired attributes. Just adjust your tactical style then to match these, find their strengths and build around this in completion. And there you have it. A roadmap to fulfilling the remaining months of Football Manager 24. The roadmap, great term. I deliberately chose this word as well. But a roadmap to finding your perfect FM24 save amidst this, expectedly unexpected delay. So whether you're aiming for trophies, you want to dive into alternative realities, or set up, an ambitious experiment, whatever it is, whatever way you want your journey to go, I hope that this episode, has sparked up some inspiration for your next adventure. Remember, the best save is the one that excites you the most, challenges you, and of course, keeps you engaged and wanting to play the game. So let me know what save you go for during this window. Share your thoughts with us on social media. You'll find the handles listed below. You know where to find us on Twitter and on Slack. And if you're still unsure, don't worry. I'm here with you. I'm just like you. I'm still trying to figure out my journey in Football Manager 2024, aside from Basel, of course. But I'm trying to figure out my direction. But until next time, happy managing. And I really hope that you find the next 5 months rewarding and fulfilling, despite the obvious disappointment we all feel at this time. But we have to look at it as an opportunity now to turn this massive disappointment, this massive negative into a positive, and make sure that something, good and positive and rewarding comes for it. For ourselves as Football Manager players, as a community, but even individually, that we have this escape that, we often need from the world. But look, let's not get too deep here, shall we? Thanks again for tuning into the FM Technical Area. Be sure, if you haven't, subscribe for more of these discussions, more of these conversations, the tips, the stories, all of these things from the world of Football Manager and, trying to translate the real world into the game. Remember, sometimes the journey can be just as fun as the destination. But look, I'll leave it there. I'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening. Bye now.